and I will lead it. Tonight we have a new attorney representing the Regional Planning Commission. I'd like to introduce you to Erica Sefton. And I don't know if she wants to say anything or say anything about herself. I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
So I just want to say thanks very much to the commission and to the Levy Court. Really happy to be here. Happy to join the group. I've been at Connolly Gallagher for 5 years. Had the pleasure to work with the Levy Court on a couple of other matters, but prior to my appointment here, so I have some familiarity already with the county and what's going on here. So looking forward to working with everyone.
Thank you very much, and once again, welcome. Sarah, I now come to you for roll call and determination of quorum.
Mr. Peterman?
Present.
Mr. Servon? Mr. Servon?
Present.
Thank you. Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Godfrey?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 7 present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. In front of you, commissioners, you have tonight's agenda. If there's no corrections, additions, or changes, I will entertain a motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Godfrey?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to approve.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much. And I'll come right back to you again for the introduction and public hearing instructions.
Thank you. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of giving the citizens of the county the opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Regional Planning Commission. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. All statements are to be made from the podium at the front of the room. All testimony given shall be sworn or affirmed. For the record, please give your name and address. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification and inclusion in the record. The record will remain open for 2 business days following tonight's hearing. For each application before the commission, the chairman will introduce the application. Then the applicant or representative will be given 15 minutes to present the application. Following that, those in favor of the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. Then those opposed to the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. When everyone has had an opportunity to give testimony, the hearing on the application will be closed. No decision will be made by the commission tonight. The commission will hold a public business meeting next Thursday at 6 p.m., at which time it will make a decision on the applications heard tonight. All information of record will be considered, and a common vote of 4 members of the commission is required to make a decision. Anyone may attend the business meeting, but no new testimony will be provided. The public notice of this hearing was published on September 11th, 2024 in the Delaware State News, and the Kent County Levy Court will hear these public hearing applications on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. unless tabled by the Planning Commission or withdrawn prior to the Levy Court hearing. The Levy Court also meets in this room. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll now get into the public hearing, and I believe our first application has to be brought off the table. Am I correct, Sarah? Just continued so we don't have to bring it off the table. Okay. So our first public hearing Is application entitled C-24-04 Tower Company. Applicant is Tower Company, 5000 Valley Stone Drive, Cary, North Carolina, 27519. Owners are B. Smith and Daughters Farm, LLC, 4849 Arthurville Road, Hartley, Delaware, 19953. Engineer is Qualtech Wireless, 200 North Warner Road, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, 19406. Comp plan designation is low density. Present zoning is AR. Relation to the growth zone is outside. Present use is agriculture. Proposed use is the same with a telecommunications tower. Levy Court District is Mr. Hertz. School District is Smyrna. Fire District is Hartley, Station 51. 46.73 total acres. And this project will actually take up 10,000 square feet located on the north side of Ford's Corner Road. Is there someone here to represent this project? Or on the phone?
Good evening.
I would need your name and address, and you can be either sworn or, unless you're an attorney.
No, our attorney, I believe, is on the phone. He was trying to be. He's dealing with a bit of a family issue this evening.
Okay, well, you give us your name and address, and the attorney will swear you in or affirm you.
Sure. Andrew Peterson, Peterson. P.O. Box 165, Fairview Village, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Peterson, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I assume you're prepared to go ahead with the presentation?
Yeah, I am.
Could I ask 1 minute, Mark, is there an attorney on the phone also?
I do believe we have our site acquisition as well as our engineer on the phone. I'm the radio frequency engineer, but we have the civil engineer on the phone as well.
So go ahead with what you have to say about this project.
The application was presented, I believe, last month. My understanding.
He didn't get to present it because we had some communication difficulties, and it was put off till this month.
Okay, I understand. T-Mobile is proposing it's Tower Co. is the applicant. They're proposing the installation of a 195-foot tower here with the addition of a 4-foot lightning rod for a total of 199 feet. T-Mobile is planning to attach their antennas to that structure with an antenna center line of 190 feet. There'll be an equipment compound, and I'll let our engineer describe that to any greater detail as far as any questions on that. But it's a complying application. I don't believe there's any relief required. And all of the comments from the review letter all will comply as a response.
So you agree with staff comments is what you're saying?
Yes. I do have some radio frequency reports to add to the record, and that's the reason for my attendance here tonight. I wasn't at or on the phone for the last meeting, but I can pass those forward whenever we're at that point. But if there's any more introductory required on the physical aspects of the site, I would turn that over to our engineer that's online.
I will ask the commission while you're at the mic if anybody has any questions of this individual. Mr. Davis?
I'm not sure you're the one that is qualified to answer the question, but we've had a lot of these applications come in for the Planning Commission, and this particular application, there are some neighbors that have deep concerns about the towers putting off some type of a electrical thing or whatever terminology you guys use. And I've read the data that, or the information you sent to us as commissioners, but I feel that people who have concerns about causing any health issues about, particularly here's a child that has autism, there's other ones who have problems, serious medical problems. So I think in all fairness to everyone, you need to explain to us what's going on with these medical issues allegedly. Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, that is part of the reason I'm here. One of the reports, and I'm not sure that this was submitted, maybe it was, and that's what you're referring to, is an electromagnetic exposure analysis.
That's it, you got it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I do have extra copies here if anyone from the audience would like them, but at a high level, the FCC and the law of the land is the FCC guidelines or the FCC exposure limits. So in this case, what TowerCo and their end user T-Mobile are required to do is demonstrate compliance with the FCC regulations for electromagnetic exposure due to these types of facilities. This is a transmitting facility. There will be radio waves that emanate from this facility. They're much more akin to public safety type power output than they are to much higher levels that we see from FM and AM and even television broadcast. So what I've done is I've performed, and I do these quite frequently, I've performed what's known as electromagnetic exposure analysis. This is a signed and sealed report that I've authored. And in that report, I detail the steps and the resources, including the FCC's Office of Engineering Technology Bulletin 65 that I use when determining the anticipated exposure levels from a facility like this one. That document, the Office of Engineering Technology Bulletin 65, is provided by the FCC. Not only does it give us the limits, the guideline limits for human exposure, it also includes the formulas that engineers like myself can use to determine the anticipated exposure levels from a facility. We can't go out and measure this facility because it's not constructed. So what we do is we use really their physics formulas that govern electromagnetic propagation, basically radio signal propagation. And then we also apply the specifics of the site, so the antenna models, the power output, things of that nature. And then we use some upper limit assumptions. Those assumptions include 100% ground reflection. That's to simulate an individual walking near the tower on a mirror surface to 100% reflect the incident power level. What that does is it doubles the power, which quadruples the power density, and that is the measuring stick in which the FCC guidelines are written. So that single assumption will quadruple the power density that the formulas yield. There are also several other upper limit assumptions, including 24/7, 365 exposure, significant antenna down tilt, so guiding or directing more of the energy towards the ground. We also assume maximum antenna gain, and we also ignore any environmental or man-made clutter like buildings, roadways, tree lines that would attenuate the signal. So we look at this from a very conservative point of view, including all of these upper limit assumptions. And with this specific facility, given the elevation of the antennas and the power output and channels that T-Mobile is proposing, the exposure levels would be less than 0.9% of the applicable limit, and that's at all locations of public access surrounding the site. And that includes the cumulative effects of all these upper limit assumptions. The reality is when we go out and we measure these types of sites, what we often find are levels that are usually on the order of 1/10 or so of what the upper limit assumptions yield. So in this case, I'd anticipate that this facility, instead of being 0.1% is probably more on the order of 0.1% of the, I'm sorry, 0.9%. I'd expect it to be about 10 times below that. So in this case, that would be about 0.1%, so about 1,000 times below what the FCC guidelines allow. So what we have is a facility that is going to be compliant with those FCC rules for human exposure and by a very wide margin. So the requirement is that we demonstrate that compliance. The county requires that. And once that has been demonstrated, the federal law is that the inquiry would then be closed unless there is an opposing expert that has a report that demonstrates that we are not compliant or calls into question some assumptions of the report. That's really the end of the inquiry. In federal law, the Telecom Act of 1996 says that bodies like this one aren't allowed to consider perceived health effects from these types of facilities so long as the applicant demonstrates compliance.
So, just curiosity, does the FCC come out and periodically monitor those electromagnetic issues? In other words, who's watching the hen house? In other words, you can start out fine and you have malfunction in your equipment and all these good things you talk about, and I believe you. And but suppose there's a complaint filed the FCC, or do they come out every 2 years and check them to make sure it's not putting off something that could be dangerous to public health?
So the FCC does not. I know in the past there have been sites that I've been involved in where the jurisdiction will require the applicant to agree to periodic testing of the facility. So they'll have a third party go out and do some testing, maybe after construction and then maybe periodically thereafter. And it's been my experience that usually the tower developers are fine with that. But the FCC, to answer your question, does not test these regularly. Yeah. An interesting note on that is the FCC considers any facility where the antennas are above 10 meters off the ground, so about 30 feet off the ground, they assume them to be compliant just due to the fact that the antennas are at an elevated position.
So I guess my next question, my last question, should we have a situation that we have a medical issue with one of these people that sent in a concern about it, we could probably put a condition on there that you have to have it checked over so often. Does your company have a problem with that?
I didn't catch that last part.
Have it tested. You mentioned that they can do the testing. You said FCC does that. If I guess they get a complaint, somebody's got to check it. And I understood you to say that it can be done.
Yeah, the applicant, in this case TowerCo, I believe that could be made as a condition of the approval. And I've never, I don't know that we have a TowerCo representative here or on the line, but I've never been involved in a tower development where the developer refused that as a condition of approval. I've always seen it been perfectly acceptable.
So if that was part of the condition, what you're saying for your company, you would not have a problem with us adding that to a condition?
I don't have the authority to say that TowerCo would be amenable to that, but I don't have any reason to doubt they would, put it that way. And if there's anyone from TowerCo on the line.
Well, do me a favor, next week we'll be voting on it. If you could contact the company and ask if they have a problem with that, let us know. I get very concerned about public health, children particularly. So see what you can find out, and I may have to consider putting that into the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you also said you had some handouts. You'll just have to turn it over to Sarah up there, and she can hand it out to us later. But I think some of the other commissioners have some questions, because we are overrunning a little bit. We usually only allow 15 minutes. So I'm going to briefly let Denise go ahead and ask you a question.
So I did get an A in 12th grade physics, but that, that was ripple tanks and stuff like that. So let's dummy this down for most of us in this room. The reality is, am I correct, that the position of that tower has great enough or more than great enough distance from any dwelling to be even close to what you have even mentioned is such a low amount? Am I correct about that?
Well, it's really the elevation of the antennas. The antennas are planned at the center line of 190 feet in the air. So any location of public access, and even inside the compound there where you're directly below the antenna, I look at all those areas.
I'm just trying to anticipate. Okay,
Yeah.
Now, are those measurements that are generally taken, routinely taken, I mean, you didn't think I could understand that. But is it assuming that there's more than just the T-Mobile on there? Because I know that the others rent space or whatever you call it. Is it based on not just one, but several things being, I think it said it somewhere in here.
Well,
It's based on an estimated more than one.
The analysis that I performed only considers what's being proposed, which is T-Mobile. However, I've done hundreds of these types of analyses on fully loaded structures, if you will, with T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, Dish Network, Cricket, Nextel, if you remember some of the providers of days past, and a tower of this height, it would really never approach, at ground level, there's no physical way that it could approach guideline limits.
All right, you dummied that down very well.
Thanks.
I think you have one question for Mr. Davis. They have till the end of the day, Tuesday, to get their answer back?
Monday, close of business Monday.
Okay, close of business Monday.
That won't be a
You'll have to get
problem.
it back to the planning department. I think a couple other commissioners, Mr. Garvey.
Yes, I actually have two questions. So keeping on the topic right now, in your expertise, so I know you're not speaking for the tower owner, but you have a unique expertise in this particular topic in terms of the impact of the radio frequencies. So if the tower was fully loaded, let's say, because we don't know if it's going to be or not going to be, but it could be, what would be your professional opinion about how often that tower should be inspected, the periodic inspection that you said that most of the owners would agree to do? So what would be the period of periodic inspection that should be done if the tower was fully loaded?
I don't mean to sound glib or dodge the question, and that's not my intention at all, but I don't think a tower like this should be inspected at all from an electromagnetic emissions perspective, because the levels are going to be, and I know it does make folks feel better to check it, but even, there was mention of a radio malfunction or something of that nature. These facilities are monitored 24/7, 365. So if there was any type of malfunction or change in configuration, T-Mobile would know, whoever the provider is would know. There's really no opportunity for there to be any change in configuration that could result in exposure levels. But to answer your question, I guess directly, maybe annually or semi-annually, that's what I've seen in the past.
Because what I'm trying to get at is I did a little homework on this myself today, and I did read through one of the reports that was submitted from the public, which was a peer-reviewed report. I was also curious how many peer-reviewed reports there was on this particular topic, and there's actually several thousand. Not to mention ones that are not peer-reviewed. I then revisited the World Health Organization, who actually quotes that to date no adverse effects have been established as being a cause for mobile phone use. I looked at the FCC, they have a similar type of comment, and then I looked at the Food and Drug Administration that maintains that the weight of scientific evidence does not link cellular phones to any health problems. So with that being said, I understand what you're saying, and I'm kind of comfortable with what you're saying, that you're taking a risk-adverse approach to this whole thing, but also keeping in mind that the public has every reason to doubt whether authorities actually do what they say they're going to do, whether things actually get implemented the way that they're designed to be implemented. So that periodic check, even though you might think is not necessary because of all of what you believe to be true, might be actually the key to make the public feel more comfortable that, in fact, what the Food and Drug Administration and the FCC and WHO is saying is actually going to be ensured as a result of this periodic check. So if we were to do a check once a year, would you think that that's unreasonable, or it might be too much, but is that unreasonable for the owner?
I don't believe so. I mean,
So we could put that into the condition of approval, that there would be an inspection for radio frequency compliance in accordance with the specifications that were, this agreement came, that we approved on a periodic basis, and that report could be made public.
I've seen that very condition been attached to approvals, and I've seen every tower developer that I've worked with agree to it. So I don't anticipate an issue if it's an annual inspection condition.
Great, thank you. I had one last question. I don't know if it falls under your jurisdiction, but there is under the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, DENREC had a concern about the tree clearing. And since the tower is right kind of on the edge of that little forested area, is it the intention of the project to clear all those trees, or just what's necessary for the tower?
So I did speak to our attorney prior and he did mention this, that there will be as little tree clearing as possible. And so I'm not sure exactly how many trees or what diameter they are, but the intention is not to clear everything, just to make room for what's being proposed.
That's good. So then, should I assume then that, like, what DENREC would rather you do as little as possible as well? But the one thing that they were concerned about is that there would be no clearing between April 1st and July 31st. In this report, so we would be okay with that as well. So we're going to do a minimal amount of tree clearing, but the tree clearing that we are going to do, if it's going to impact nesting birds and so forth, as in DENREC's report, we would preclude from doing it between April 1st and July 31st.
Yeah, I think, that was a will comply item, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay,
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I think Mr. Peterman has one question.
I noticed on the warning signs, notice signs and all, that it says on it, biggest warning said, beyond this point, radio frequency fields from the towering antenna at this site may exceed FCC rules for human
I'm not familiar with which document that is. I mean, I know the signage very well.
Okay. Is this a norm for you, that it may be higher than what the FCC says? Or is there a controllable way that you control this? Or
So
that don't sound good to me at all. Just that you got the sign up, so it may be worse than what we said it is.
So a facility like this won't require any signage of that nature. There's usually just a placard on the access gate that identifies the tower owner and usually an emergency number. But that type of signage, we do install that signage when we have, let's say, a rooftop installation where folks can get near the antennas by virtue of their employment. Let's say they're an HVAC professional or a roofer. In those cases, there could be signage like that on a doorway to the roof or in areas of the roof.
Okay, on this radio frequency there, will that break down the farther it gets away from that gate? Is the people safe if somebody builds a housing development out there? Is that going to be something? Well, we put a sign up there because you should have read it, but if you get close enough to read it, you're already in trouble. how far does these radio frequency waves go out from there that still could be dangerous?
So there won't be any signage of that nature on a facility like this. And even in the compound, outside the compound, anywhere at ground level, the emissions will be well below the FCC requirements. As per the report, the maximum at any location at ground level
Okay, so they will
would
be
be less than
lower
1%.
They will be lower than FCC. That's what you're saying at ground level?
Yeah, significantly lower.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Denise has a question for Sarah.
It's not in ag land preservation, so it's AR. Could something happen where they want to sell the land and have a subdivision, then the tower has to come down? I mean, how does that work?
No, the tower would be subject to a completely separate agreement. And given the location in the county, the likelihood of a major subdivision in that area is exceptionally slim.
Because it's out of the growth zone.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons it's a good location. Okay, thank you.
Well, I know you've exceeded your limit, which is only supposed to be.
I have a
2
question.
minutes, but I do have somebody, Mr. Servon, I think, is on the line. He's another commissioner. And once he gets that, if you have somebody else on the line, I'm going to limit. I think this is a very important issue. I would limit your attorney or somebody else to 5 more minutes. But take Mr. Servon's question right now, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
Thank you. It's just a quick question. I've noticed that some of the pole antennas in the area have been camouflaged to look like a tree. What's the possibility that this can be done the same way?
So that would be a question for the tower developer. My experience is that those tend to stick out a little bit more than they do, especially a tower of this height. Sometimes they work when they're when there's a backdrop of trees.
Yes.
That, in my opinion anyway, but now I'm swimming out of my lane. I'm just a radio frequency engineer, but that's been my experience. These galvanized steel monopoles tend to become part of the landscape, whereas if you try to disguise them, they draw the eye a bit more, and there's just more visual mass.
That answer your question,
But
Mr. Servon?
Well, there's no problem with putting that material on there. It doesn't interfere with the operation of the antenna.
No, it doesn't interfere with the operation of the antennas. The tower needs to be a bit bulkier to support the faux branches, so it becomes more visual mass, not just with the branches, but also with the support structure. And then operationally, it is a little. There is some inconvenience there because now a tower climber can't just go up and do what they need to do. Now there needs to be a bucket truck, or with a tower of this height, a significant means of reaching the antennas, maybe even something of greater height than a bucket truck. So there are some operational inconveniences associated with that.
And you have any idea of the cost differences?
No, I really don't. I know that the faux tree is more expensive. I just don't know the economics of it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do you have somebody on the phone, Mark, that's representing this company also and would like to speak on their behalf? I'll give them 5 minutes because they're going to have to limit their time because we're far exceeding your presentation.
Apologies.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak on this application, please indicate by raising the electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you then. Thank you for your presentation. I assume you'll get the answers back to the planning department by the deadline that we have asked about.
I do have 6 copies of hard copies of the reports, which I can hand up for distribution too. Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of this project, would like to speak in favor? Please come to the mic. Give us your name, address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
Hello, my name is Bruce Smith. I own this property. I live at 4849 Arthur'sville Road, Hartley, Delaware.
Mr. Smith, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed.
To answer a couple of the questions that you had before in regards to cutting the trees down, I was there the day they come and bored for the soils for the tower. It is located away 20 feet, 25 feet from the trees, so I don't see much of a problem with that. This piece of property that you see right now was approximately 8 different lots. The reason why it's taken us so long to do this, it was surveyed down to 1 lot. So we did not have to come here and bother you people with going through where the tower is right now. It was on an 1.5 acre lot. There was 3 acre lots on each side of it, plus a 13 acre lot, a 9 acre lot, and a 12 acres, which made up the whole 47. So that's one of the reasons why, as far as being a development, it was taken away. Okay? Now, I've worked in telephone since 1974, and I know that you have a lot of things in regards to all the RF that you talked about and things of that nature. I can remember when we had 4-party lines, when we had bag phones, and my double oven now has Wi-Fi. Okay? The thing is, your TVs are going to be streaming soon. Everything in your house is going to be wireless. Everything in your house is going to be transmitting something in your house. And we talk about health issues. Nobody's discussing that. I understand the things with health concerns. One of the things they were talking about was diabetes. The best thing you can have for diabetes is a good service. Presently in this area, T-Mobile has no service. When they come out to the site, the man was using his GPS and it shut off on him. So that's one of the reasons for the tower. We no longer have just Verizon and AT&T. There is at least 5 major companies providing cell service, and there's over 100 of local and regional cell companies. So, you know, this is not something new. And out in our area, just because you have Verizon, that don't mean you have good service. You can go closer to the Maryland line and it's just about non-existent with even Verizon. Presently, the tower in Hartley is about 250 feet from a daycare. There's a daycare to the east of it. There's an elementary school to the south of it. You know, so we talk about health issues. This tower is out in the middle of a field with nothing around it. So I understand your concerns about the health, but we have just about everybody in here. When you go to work, if you live in Hartley and you go to work, you drive by a minimum of 4 cell towers by the time you get to Dover on the different roads, different areas. There's 2 right down here by General Foods that people drive by every day. So, you know, I understand making it look like a tree and things of that nature, but most of the people don't even know they're driving by cell towers because you just never pay much attention to it. So if anybody has any questions, I can try to help you out. Or
I thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll ask the commissioners, is Mr. Servon or anybody here have any questions for the owner?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation.
all right.
Third and final call for anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of this project. Seeing none, I'll go to the against side. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak against this project? Please come to the microphone and you can give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Hello, my name is Sarah Turner, and I live at 227 Delaware River Drive in Clayton.
Ms. Turner, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
You can pull the mic right up to you because we can't hear you, so, and speak up the best.
I apologize. Yes, sir. So I'm not actually opposed, but I had food for thought. I don't know if that's okay. I did have comments.
This is the opposition side, so you can make whatever you want it to be.
Okay, thank you, sir. The thing that I would ask you all to think of is for future upgrades to this equipment and what that might mean as far as output of frequencies. I'm definitely not an RF engineer, but I know that there's constant development and equipment upgrades, and as such, we don't know exactly what that output might be in the future that could possibly affect a larger range of area and people and stuff like that. So that was all. Thank you.
That was a good question. I hadn't heard that one before, but I'll open it up to anyone on the commissioner. Mr. Servon, have any questions for this individual? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that's against this project and would like to speak? We'll do the gentleman, then we'll come over to you, ma'am. Sir, give us your name and address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
My name's William DeLong, and I live at 3021 Ford's Corner Road in Hartley, Delaware.
Mr. DeLong, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. All right, so I live only a few hundred feet from where this proposed cell tower will be placed. My family, some of our neighbors, and I currently have several concerns regarding this tower. The first of many concerns is that my family members that live at my address have many different medical issues that range from ADHD and epilepsy all the way to breast cancer. My two children both have severe ADHD, and radio frequency waves, just like moon phases, affect them in many different ways, such as making them more hyper than usual more days than not. Also, my son has epilepsy, ADHD, and autism since he has been born. With all these diagnoses, he has trouble sleeping due to his mind running 1,000 miles a minute and never slowing down. These added radio frequencies can also affect his sleep patterns, which are right now controlled by medication. Furthermore, many people know that epilepsy is, or what epilepsy is and how it can affect a person day to day, but many do not. But for my son, epilepsy is a crippling disability on top of having autism and ADHD that makes it where he cannot watch TV, play video games, or even be able to get his license the day he turned 16 years old. He is an outdoorsy kid, flashing and blinking lights, different changes in his environment, such as radio frequencies and changes in his surrounding areas that are familiar to him make him go into a seizure. Some of his seizures are not bad, but some of them can make him go to the hospital in order to bring him out of them or help him recover from them. Every time he has a seizure, his memory and cognitive abilities are affected. His seizures have affected his learning capacities and his home life capacities. He's now a 21-year-old adult with the mentality of a 14-year-old. Sometimes after a seizure, he doesn't remember his mother or I, and he has been in a special needs school basically all his life. He'll never be able to work, and he's already on Medicare at 21 years old. As again I said, he'll never be able to drive. The autism doesn't help the situation with changes in his environment, such as a huge cell phone tower basically in his backyard. The autism kicks in because there's a change in his familiar environment and the yard, The autism kicks in because there is a change in his familiar environment, and that stimulates his brain to go 1,000 miles a minute of what it is and why it's there, almost like a panic. This activated extra brain activity itself can set him into an epileptic attack, let alone the extra radiation that will be given off from the frequencies from this proposed tower, which we have turned in a doctor's note to the levy court, which stated that a cell phone tower this close to my son is not recommended. We also have another child that lives across the street from us that has autism, and parents couldn't be here tonight, but they're in the same boat as far as we are with the way autism goes, because it's a major change in their environment. Furthermore, my grandmother, who lives with us also, is a current breast cancer fighter. This woman has gone through multiple rounds of chemo, radiation, even a double mastectomy. She's a true fighter. To this day, 2 years ago, or 2 years after her last radiation treatment, she still wakes up some days with a burn that appears every so often, which doctors consider a radiation burn. Think about that. 2 years later, her skin has healed, but some days the burns appear out of nowhere. This is the truth about radiation. I understand a cell tower is a different type of radiation, but any type of radiation is not good for anyone. She does not need to be exposed to any more radiation if possible, and she wants to be able to enjoy the rest of her time she has here on Earth and be able to enjoy the country life and the fresh air and atmosphere that it entails and gives to her. My next point is property values. With the unsightly and unappealing metal poles surrounded by a fence and barbed wire while being so close to my home and other homes nearby, our property values are going to drop dramatically. If you look out my bay window at my kitchen sink, that's all you're going to see. A metal pole with barbed wire and fence around it, and giant diesel generators. Furthermore, if you sit on my back porch or pulling into my driveway or go into my backyard, that's all you're going to see. Also, the noise of the diesel generators is not something I want to hear, nor would a potential home buyer. We live in the country for a peace of quiet atmosphere. I want to be able to hear the birds chirping, owls hooting. That is what the country life is about, not diesel generators and a 200-foot metal pole. And as it was said before, you know, the poles within 2 to 3 miles surrounding the area, at some point there has to be a stop to this farmland destruction just for a guaranteed easy 99-year lease paycheck. Understand farming is not what it used to be as far as being able to make a living off of it, but this is not the answer. I don't want my property value to decrease due to someone looking for an easy guaranteed paycheck and putting other people around it in harm's way due to the side effects caused by the radio frequencies and radiation. Which leads me to the next point of the wildlife. This property has been a working farm for many decades. There's a dedicated wetland right along the driveway that we'll be using to get to and from the cell tower, which is the tower to the tower, which the tower alone is pretty much on top of the wetlands, just above it. If you can see where the square is, just south of that is wetlands. There's also a wildlife pond nearby, the other corner of my property, which is the dark square to the right. The Gravely taxed ditch runs along my property and the whole farm property this proposed tower will be sitting on. There are a ton of wildlife that live there, including bald eagles, which have nested nearby tree lines, white-tailed deer, wild turkey, etc. They have made this area their home for many decades. Now there's a proposed cell tower that has a chance to be built in the middle of their free-run environment. What happens when a bald eagle flies into the barbed wire? What happens if a bald eagle or a Canadian goose flies into the tower? What about the effects of the radio frequencies on these animals? Diesel generators break down. Oil and diesel is going to leak out. What happens to the ground? With the Gravely Run ditches there, there's also small ditches and trenches in the field. That water runoff's got a potential of going into this wetland or these ditches. And as I close, I want to also say that I'm afraid of the company that is trying to propose this cell tower that's being built. At the first public meeting, the lawyers started talking and got cut off due to Zoom issues. Understandable, things happen. However, the land acquisition lady had no clue about anything that revolved around this cell tower except that she acquires the land, and the tech guy who could just say that, yes, we can add things to this tower. I hope everyone here tonight takes all of my concerns and thoughts into consideration when approving or denying the right to build this cell tower and how it could affect families like mine medically, home prices, and local wildlife. And lastly, I just want to say that I sincerely appreciate the time that I had to speak here tonight.
Thank you for your presentation. I think Denise here has a question for you.
I don't really have a question. Years ago, I worked as a developmental nurse specialist, so I feel for your family and that child of yours. I understand all that. But I think if you listen closely to the presentation that was given, this tower is so high that I suspect that any cell phone or anything of that nature that you have in your house is providing far more, maybe I'm wrong about that, than what this will. So I understand where you're coming from. I would probably worry about the same thing because I know you worry all the time about everything, and I understand that. But I hope that if you can read more and, if you could even listen to what this gentleman said again slowly so you could really grasp it, what you could of it, couldn't grasp all of it, you would feel better And I think that that's, at this point, that's what I want to see for you. I really do.
I think Mr. Peterman has a question.
Where is your dwelling in relationship?
So
with
my
that dot?
dwelling is to the right where it bumps up.
How far from the tower?
Go down
Okay.
to the left. Keep going. Right. That. Yeah, right there.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Davis has a question or a comment.
The only thing I want to say, to ask you is that here are these issues seriously. So my question would be, if we put the condition in the vote that they must have that tested yearly over to whatever we decide to do, wouldn't that make you a little more comfortable knowing that somebody's monitoring those issues about that frequency? Would that help you any?
So a little bit more comfortable. Yes.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Mr. Servon on the phone? Seeing none, I thank you for your presentation. We'll certainly take that to heart. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this project? Please come up, young lady, and give us your name and address. You could either be sworn or affirmed.
My name is Virginia Messick. I live at 3433 McKee Road, Dover, Delaware.
Ms. Mezek, do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. I do not live at this particular area. It is my father's property, and he passed away last year at this time, and I inherited myself and my siblings. Our property is, if you see the little corner.
You can touch the screen down there, ma'am. When you touch it, there will be a blue arrow. You can
Right
point it
there.
where you want to.
Our property is right there. If you go back to the end of my father's property, it lines up almost perfectly with where this tower is going. There used to be a house there on that, where the tower is going. So there is a lane that just had a new culvert put in, coincidence. And there's electricity already back there. So I'm thinking that maybe that's one of the reasons that it was chosen. I'm not sure. My mother currently resides at this address, and my children are hoping in the next couple of years, one of them, to buy this property and raise some of my grandchildren there. And I did a little bit of research. I like that gentleman there, I'm sorry, I can't see your name, looked up the reports from the WHO and from the FCC, which were inconclusive, and they didn't have any proof as of now for it. But I went on to continue to search and found the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences noted that there was some research found with a possible link between EFM field strength and an increased risk of childhood leukemia. And there was other concerns persist about these connections. I found another website that told me that now that the state of Oregon has banned 5G towers anywhere near their schools. So that leads me to think there might be some kind of connection happening that maybe isn't put out there for us. And then also, I did some research on, and it came from Environmental Health Trust, that talked about the lowering of property values from having cell towers near your home up to 20% in some homes, that it devalued the property. And we have lived there our whole life, and my father loved his property, even though it was just a little piece of property, little house. He thought that was his world, and we were trying to keep it in the family. But if a tower comes there, I don't think I will want to continue to do that. And my question is, why does it have to be there, near homes? If you go down this road over here, Arthursville Road, there is miles and miles of farmland and unused farmland that have no homes around it whatsoever. And so my proposed why can't we put it there? Or even if you go down Lockwood Chapel Road, there's miles and miles of road with no houses in either direction. Why couldn't it be placed there? Why does it have to be near us? Also, the emissions from the diesel generator that the gentleman was talking about, what would those be? Are you going to be able to smell them? How is that going to pollute our air? And we are just down the street from the wetlands that this other gentleman talked about. And, I would just ask, would you want it in your backyard? Would they want it in their backyard? Because if it's not, then I don't think it's fair to ask us to put it in our backyard when it can affect our health, our family's health, our neighbor's health, and also affect the property value.
I thank you very much. I'll ask it and open it up to any commissioners have any questions. Mr. Servon? No hands raised. Thank you again. We'll take all that into consideration.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against this project? Anyone else here speak against? Third and final call. We'll be taking this project up next week. Thank you all for your comments. Next on the agenda tonight is application number CS-24-04. Application title is 89 Hunting Quarter Road. Owner and applicant is Cavillo Farm LLC, 89 Hunting Quarter Road, Greenwood, Delaware, 19950. Engineer is Hillcrest Associates, Thomas Schreider, RLA, P.O. Box 1180, Hockessin, Delaware, 19707. AR is the zoning district. Comprehensive plan is low density residential. Growth zone, it's outside. Present use is agriculture, campground, and commercial recreation facility. Proposed use is St. Farm Winery, brewery, and distillery with accessory gift shop, meeting hall, retail sales, and tasting facility. Water is well, sewer is septic. Levy court is the Fourth Scott. Fourth school district is Milford. Fire district is Farmington, Station 47. Area and location is 134.31 plus or minus acres on the west side of Hunter Courting Road. Is there someone here to represent this project? So I guess he's at the mic. If you could please give us your name and address, and if you're not an attorney, you'll have to be sworn or affirmed.
I'm not an attorney. Christopher Coviello, 89 Hunting Quarter Road. That's in Houston, Delaware, 19954.
Mr. Coviello, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Sorry if I messed up on your name there, but I tried to do the best I can.
It's all good. Coviello.
Very good. So go ahead with your presentation.
So we're sitting on 134 acres, plus or minus, and we are conditional use currently. We have 40 campground sites, which we allow RVs to come in and camp with us. And we have been growing elderberries for about a year now, and they're nice and mature. And I've been making wine for about a year and a half or so. So I've decided that I want to make it legal now, and I would like to sell our wine and offer wine for purchase. So did I say something? I commit myself?
No, I didn't hear a thing. I don't know what you were talking about. I have no idea.
Right. Thank you.
Do you agree with all staff recommendations and comments?
Yes, sir.
I think this came before us a year or two ago, didn't it, Sarah?
For the campground, yeah.
No.
For the camping area.
Yes,
and all
for
like
the campground. Yeah, we had some struggles, but it's been well worth all the struggles that we've been through. We've met some awesome people. It's just been a great project. So now we're just looking at enhancing the area a little bit more with some wine.
Well, I heard that. I haven't heard anything before that. So
okay, I'm sorry.
We're good to go.
Okay.
I'm going to open it up to the commissioners now. Anybody have any questions of this individual? Mr. Servon on the phone.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone else here that'd like to speak in favor of this project? We'll just see if anybody else comes up to the mic. You don't have to worry about anything. Your presentation is done.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here like to speak in favor? If not, I'll go to the against side. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak against this project? Second call. Anyone here like to speak against this project?
If there's anyone joining us online who would like to speak in favor or against this project, please indicate by raising electronic hand. See no hands raised online, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On third and final call, anyone here would like to speak against this project? If not, we'll then take this project up next week, and thank you for your presentation. Next application, ordinance application and name is LC-LC24-26, CZ-24-09, K, the initial K, and then Hovian. Applicant is K. Hovian, 2499 South DuPont Boulevard, Suite G, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977. Owner is Dawn R. Ellery, Patricia E. Gibbs, Gwen D. Rinaldo, Robin A. Silverman, 3 Spring Lane, Yardley, Pennsylvania, 19067. Additional contact is a Lewis H. Presker, power of attorney, 2405 Brookshire Drive, Wilmington, Delaware, 19803. Comprehensive plan designation is BG. Proposed zoning is RM. Relation to the gross zone is inside. Levy Court District is the first, Mrs. Meston. School District is Smyrna. Fire District is Smyrna, Station 44. 81.9 acres, plus or minus, located on the northeast corner of South DuPont Boulevard and Twin Willow Road. Is there someone here to represent this project? Please come up. Are you an attorney?
I am not.
Okay, you'll have to give us your name and address.
Jonathan Content, K. Hovnanian Homes, 2499 South DuPont Boulevard, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission. Thank you for another opportunity to present a project that we hope to kick off in Kent County. Good to see you guys again. I know we spoke last month as well. We are here looking for a rezoning on a parcel located on the southern portion of the zip code for Smyrna, but outside of town limits. You can see on the screen here and in the packets that are being passed out, which is a copy of this presentation, that the property sits right next to, in between Route 1 and Route 13 and north of Twin Willows Road. Currently, it's a vacant property. You've already read through some of the identifying information, so I won't bore you with that. You've identified that it is in the growth zone overlay. And what we're here today to ask for is a downzoning from general business to multifamily residential. So we're asking for a downzoning and an amendment to the comprehensive plan to go along with that, to take that from highway commercial to residential.
Kind of an unusual request. We don't usually give them downzoning, we usually get them upzoning, so.
We're trying to make it a little bit nicer for everybody in the area, lower traffic, you know.
Well, it is a highly populated area up in that area as you get up there farther. So do you have any other things to present, or are you just asking?
I do. Yes, I just wanted to run through part of the standard of review for this type of request, which you are all very familiar with under Section 408.
Go ahead.
As it pertains to map amendments. The first section is whether or not this zoning, the original zoning that we're asking for the change from, was a mistake. And it is not a mistake, but we did want to point out, as the staff pointed out, that this property was originally platted as a combination of residential, agricultural, and business back in 1993, and was then rezoned to be entirely business. So what we're asking for is not a correction to the map, but kind of reverting back to what it was 30 years ago. The next section that we have to comply with, or the next standard of review, talks about the zoning changes and whether or not they're consistent with the area. And as we'll get to in a later slide, We are consistent with the zoning in the area, which it's surrounded by residential at this point. And you can see on the comprehensive plan map 7C that this area is generally slated for residential development. Then we get into facilities, and I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the map so I can show it to you. This area does not currently sit within a sewer district, but it is surrounded by Kent County Sewer District. That is most likely because it has not been developed yet. But there is a sewer main. As you well know, the Kent County sewer main runs right down 13. There are several pump stations in the area. If we had to, we would obviously add a pump station, but we have ready access to sewer. We have ready access to water, which also runs along Route 13, is provided by Artesian Water. And as far as road improvements go, it sits right on Route 13, which is already it's a highway. It's a minor arterial road designed to handle pretty much any of the traffic that would come through that area, whether it be commercial or residential. And with that, as soon as we got rezoning approved on this, we would of course be required to perform a TIS. This area has been studied to death, so we would let DelDOT tell us whether or not they want us to provide another study or if we would just pay a fee in lieu of for an area-wise study. This area just south of here up to Garrison Lake is also part of the Cheswold Transportation Improvement District, and there could be an opportunity for them to extend that up to where we are so that DelDOT can coordinate those improvements from Cheswold all the way up to this area, because we're really not that far outside of it. But upon rezoning, of course, we would take the necessary steps to determine what the Department of Transportation wants us to do as far as road improvements, which would primarily be, in my opinion, on Twin Willows Road, as Route 13 is already a highway. And you can see where the blue arrow is. We've got water and sewer, as I pointed out, right there on the property. Any plans would have to be reviewed by the State Fire Marshal for compliance, as well as Kent Conservation for impact to any wetlands or any erosion and sediment control plans that we have to have for this property. And then it is, of course, within the Citizens Hose Fire District from Smyrna. The last section of the rezoning requirements or standard of review talk about, again, what is in the area specifically. And for that, I just wanted to show this map to show our compliance and consistency with the area. Everything that you see labeled here is a residential subdivision. So it's already pretty heavily residential in that area, and we would just be looking to fill in the holes here. And at this time, I'd like to bring up the attorney who is representing the sellers of this property to give a little background on the power of attorney.
Before you leave, though, is that the golf course right across on the other side of the road?
That is, it's right across from Garrison Lake Golf Course.
That's the state-run golf course.
Yep. Yeah, you can see it pretty much surrounds Hickory Ridge all the way through that area.
Yeah, Correct. I've been there. Okay, thank you. Sir, you're an attorney, I understand, so if you just give us your name and address, that's all you'll have to do.
Yes, I'm Robert Penza. I'm a Delaware licensed attorney. My residence is 2501 Kingman Drive in Wilmington, Delaware. And
welcome.
Thank you. And I am counsel for 3 of the 4 sellers that own this property. Dawn Ellery, who is here also, she'll speak in favor of the application. Gwen Rinaldi and Robin Krakowski. And I thought it'd be helpful just to very briefly give you a little bit more history of this limited power of attorney that I think will be useful for you. So the 4th owner of the property is Patricia Gibbs. My 3 clients are sisters. Patricia Gibbs is their aunt, and they inherited this property. And they couldn't agree on how to coexist with this property and how to sell it, who to sell it to. And years ago, they ended up in a partition action in the Court of Chancery, and I was involved in that litigation. And ultimately, last year, come June, last summer, the Court of Chancery gave the parties a deadline of June 30, 2023 to decide whether they could come up with their own private way to get this property sold, or if not, the court was going to order it to be sold at a sheriff's sale, which would not have been favorable to any of the owners. And so the parties did agree to, before that deadline, they did agree to sign this limited power of attorney. All four of them did. I witnessed and notarized the signature of Patricia Gibbs to allow who was the existing trustee under the partition action, Louis Pritzker, who is here, to act as the agent to market the property, to try and maximize value for all the owners. And that's the process that's led us here today. And so I mentioned some of this background because Ms. Gibbs did, sign the limited power of attorney. She did send a letter last summer to the Vice Chancellor indicating, that the only reason, she said the only reason she signed it was to prevent immediate court auctions, which she told the Vice Chancellor. So he understood that. And a week later, he had a copy of this limited power of attorney, and he entered the order dismissing the partition action to allow the parties to proceed to sell it privately under this limited power of attorney. And so I thought that background would be helpful because I did notice there was a letter, in the staff packet from Ms. Gibbs indicating that she had signed it under duress, but that duress was by the court. It was not from me or from any of the parties. Thank you.
I think the only reason we're taking care of is the zoning. We're only worrying about addressing what the county can control. We don't get in legal matters or family matters or anything like that.
I just thought that background would be helpful for you to understand where.
Yeah, even though we have a new attorney here tonight, I would like to get her in challenging, but we're not going to go there. So thank you for your background. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I will ask while you're both up there, does any commissioners have any questions for either one of these individuals?
I just had one more slide before we get
Okay.
to questions.
Okay, I won't open up to the commissioners till you finish.
Again, just one more slide. I just wanted to show, as you guys have read in your packet, that the staff have reviewed everything that was submitted on this, and they are recommending approval of this rezoning.
And you agree with the staff, whatever they said and all
We do.
of that? Very good.
We do.
Now I'll open
Now,
up
if
to
you
the
have any questions,
commissioners.
I'd love to answer them.
Any on the commission board, or Mr. Servon, do you have any questions for this individual?
No, thank you.
I see none. Once again, thank you, and thank you for the attorney for the background that we heard.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here like in favor of this project? Please come to the mic, name and address. You can be sworn or affirmed.
Dawn Ellery, one of the owners. I live at 619 Lauren Circle, Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Ms. Ellery, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just here to lend my support. My sisters and I are all in favor of the sale, and we're hopeful that it will go forward.
Very good. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you again. Another call. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this project? Please come to the mic. Then we'll go over to the against. Is there anyone here that's against this project and would like to speak? We'll do the young lady over here, then we'll come over back to you. Ma'am, if you give us your name and address, you can be sworn or affirmed.
Yes, I'm Patricia Ellery Gibbs, Mrs. James Gibbs, 3431 South DuPont 3431 South DuPont Boulevard. It changes over the years. Smyrna.
Hold on. Okay, you're going to be sworn or affirmed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Gibbs, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Then try to keep the mic close so we can hear you.
Okay, I'll try. It echoes. Joseph Nicholson represented the Ellery estate after my father's death in 2000. Sam Glasscock signed off on the Ellery estate. I became the next owner of record and paid the property tax bills. My brother died in 2003, and I did not. Then the property tax bill moved to Don Ellery, and then to Louis Pritzker. I'm still alive, and I'm the owner of record. Mr. Pritzker does not have any legal power of attorney from me. He has never represented me. A housing developer does not own my family's farm, and they have no legal right to apply to downzone this property. And thank you very much for listening.
Well, I don't think we don't get into legal matters. All we do is look at zonings and see whether they should or should not. Is there any comment from our attorney about what she's saying?
I'm not in a position, based on what I've heard, to make a judgment as to what she's saying specifically. I will say that it is a legal matter that goes beyond what we're here to deal with. To the extent that she believes that this is an invalid document, she is welcome to go seek an order of the court saying so, but there is no such record in front of us right now. And so as far as what I see before me, I don't see that as an issue, but I can't speak to what a court of law might find or a court of equity.
Appreciate that. And I think Mr. Davis has a question.
I guess the question I have is that I'm a little confused who owns it. Here's a lady testifying under oath that it's her property. I understand we handle the one part about the rezoning. I understand that completely. But in my mind, this lady is saying publicly and under oath it's not their property. I don't know whether this thing should proceed or not. I mean, this raises a big question with me. I mean, they say it's theirs, she says they all get that worked out before they come in for us. Thank you.
I'm not saying that they don't own the property. I'm saying that...
What are you saying?
I'm saying that all of us are of age in the family, and I have been denied the right to pay the property taxes. I am the owner in residence on the property, and I have been in residence for over 20 years. Therefore, I have the right to live on this property and to enjoy it and to do what needs to be done to benefit the family. This particular, if you want to call it a contract that has been presented, is not a good contract. It's not.
Okay, let me clean it up real quick. Then you do have an issue with them and not with us. You need if you have an attorney or talk to the owner of the company, if they want you to stay there, that's between you and them, not the commission. So
well, the company is
out.
Asking for this change in zoning, and they don't own the property. So how can they get a change in zoning?
When you're speaking property, are you speaking the entire property is yours or a portion of the property is yours?
No, I am saying the entire property is owned by the family.
And you're one of the family.
That is correct.
So you don't own the entire property, you own a portion of the property.
That is correct, but I am on the...
Mr. Garvery is speaking now, because I hadn't recognized you.
I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Garvery is speaking.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to ascertain, when you're speaking, to my ears, it sounds like you're speaking for everybody. And so I understand that you live there. I understand that you inherited the rights to a portion of this property, as did your sisters. So that
My
you
nieces.
don't, your sisters. So you don't own the entire property. You own a portion of the property, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But I am the owner of record, and it's been just...
I think what they have is three sisters and an aunt that are in this together. And I guess what I need to know is, can we actually proceed with this, or do they have to get the legal issue straightened out before they...
I'm the owner of record living on the property.
We understand you, ma'am. We understand you. We hear it. So I'm just asking, do we have the abilities to go on, or is there something that has to be straightened out before we can address this?
In what I have seen, I don't see anything that gives me concern. However, recognizing that there is testimony being given that the commissioners are concerned about, I would be happy to look into it and issue an opinion on that if that would be acceptable.
Yes, very definitely.
Well, I have an issue here. I guess I've always got an issue. But I think this thing ought to be postponed until that gets resolved. They're not going to build a house in the next 10 days. This needs to be resolved. That's between them and the other alleged owners. I want to make a motion. If you want to turn it down, fine, but this is how I feel about it. I make a motion to postpone.
I don't know if we're in a position now to do the motion being we're taking testimony. Can we finish that first?
We've done it before.
We should finish the hearing, and then at the end of the hearing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We understand your position, ma'am, and we're going to finish taking testimony. Then I think you're going to agree with what Mr. Davis is about to say. So I appreciate what you've said. We understand, so thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
You got a question for who, Mr. Peterman?
You have a clear property deed to the piece of property you live on, right?
Yes, yes. This is my daughter, and she is helping me.
I appreciate that. I understand.
I'm 77 now, and we're.
I think we ought to just go ahead and take testimony and finish with the testimonies, and I think that's another legal question that'll be answered from we do the study beyond that. Ma'am, are you finished with what you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Does the other lady want to give us her name and address and say something?
My name is Aurora Ann Gibbs, and I live at 3431 South DuPont Boulevard, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Ms. Gibbs, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I am the daughter of Patricia Ellery Gibbs, the owner of record, and James Ellis Gibbs. And I am the granddaughter of Lawrence Ellery and Dorothy Ellery, the prior owners of record. I and part of the family have been living on the Ellery farm. I've actually been living there for 10 years straight from 2014 and on, so not vacant. We are currently, my mother and I and my father's visiting. We live there. And I'm not in favor of downzoning. I don't think it would be beneficial for the family. We have lived there. My grandparents bought the property in the 1950s. They came from New England and New Hampshire, and they started, I think, one of the first plant nurseries in Kent County on Route 13. And they continued with that for many decades. They also had a landscaping design business. They were very active in the community. And I don't see a reason why the whole family can't continue to be active in the community, including my cousins, I have 2 older brothers, and one of my brothers has adult-age children, and my 3 cousins have adult-age children. So it's not just 4 people. But my mother, Patricia Ellery Gibbs, who is the owner of record, she was the owner of record after her father died. So her mother died in 1996, her father died in 2000. She became the owner of record. She received the property taxes. And she continued to receive the property taxes until my uncle died. She didn't die. And for some reason, there was no property tax bill. It was moved to Don Ellery. Then it was moved out of our family to Louis K. Pritzker, Louis H.B. Pritzker, who is not I believe he's not a registered attorney in the state of Delaware since 2016. I don't believe he's in good standing. And my mother anyways, he has come on the property many, many times. Both my mother and I have requested him to leave because we are in possession of the property. Both my mother is the owner of record and myself. I am the daughter and the granddaughter of Lawrence and Dorothy. So anyways, our family has had a history here in Kent County, and I don't see any reason why we can't stay and continue a business or businesses. We do have some knowledge in the nursery business, so I don't think another housing development would be a good thing, particularly when it has been a commercially utilized property, and it's also been a farm. We have utilized it as a farm. We have had Angus cattle, we have grown asparagus, we've grown strawberries. Some of us do know how to farm, and I believe regenerative farming is something that people are learning more about. And I think people also are having questions about our industrial food system, and that's a good thing. And Delaware is a farm state, and that's part of the reason my grandparents moved from New Hampshire, because the climate up there was not as beneficial as it is down here for growing plants, for farming, and they loved the climate, and they loved how farm-friendly and business-friendly. And we also are still members of the Farm Bureau here in Delaware. So I am against downzoning for myself being in residence, for my mother being in residence, and for a family farm.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Stay right there a minute, young lady. I think Denise has a comment.
Well, I don't want to say too much because I think we're discussing something that has nothing to do with us, first of all. I want to say that. But I will say that I'm looking at something that your mother signed, doing with the power of attorney. So I'm looking at that as well. Maybe she regrets that mistake. Maybe it was a mistake that she regrets now. I don't know. And that's not what we're here for. So I think that at this point, the decision is, do we listen to our attorney and wait for her response as to whether or not next week we vote on this downzoning? I don't want to get involved, honestly. That's not our job, is not to get involved in what all this discussion has been.
Okay, is that the end of your presentation, young lady?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one more call. Is there anybody here that's against this project and would like to speak? Sir, I have one gentleman back there. If you're going to have something to add to it as far as the foresight, we're going to have to ask you to submit it to the planning department and have it in writing, because you've had your saying at the mic.
Okay, I just didn't know if it would be helpful for me to...
No, at this time, we've already took your testimony, and you know how it is when you get into the legalities and things like that. So we're now still in the against part. So, sir, if you'll give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
My name is Christopher T. Skuse, 207 Selden Drive, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time today. Today I'll be referencing, first I will start off with, I am here speaking as a Kent County resident. I am currently on the Smyrna School Board of Education, but I am not here speaking for the board or the district. I am here speaking for myself and myself alone. Of course, I'm here to speak against this, and I will be referring to the Kent County Comprehensive Plan that you have on your website. That vision statement says, to preserve the royal and community character of Kent County by encouraging the most appropriate use of land, water, and other resources that protects the county's natural, historic, and cultural resources, allows for economic opportunity, preserves farmland, manages growth, and provides a safe, sustainable environment in which all citizens may live, work, shop, learn, and play. In that same comprehensive plan, there was a survey taken, and I will reference some of those questions and answers that were taken. The first question was, what is the biggest issue facing Kent County today? The number one answer from the residents was creation of local jobs. The next question was, what do you consider the biggest threat to Kent County? Number one answer, lack of strength in the county's economic base. Number two answer, uncontrolled growth. To that end, the Kent County Economic Partnership has identified 3 economic strategies initiatives. 1, business retention. 2, business expansion. 3, business recruitment and development. The economic development areas map that is in that same comprehensive plan that may have been referred to a little bit earlier identified 3 small areas for, and I quote, potential employment centers. And this is in one of those identified potential employment centers. So out of how large our county is, it was 3 small areas that were identified for the potential employment centers. Put plainly, the residents are asking for employment opportunities. If this is changed from commercial to high density, which by the way, high density residential, we are losing potential to answer the needs of the residents. So my rhetorical question is, this is one of only 3 small areas in that county identified for potential employment centers. If this is taken away, are we neglecting our residents' largest concern? Another question that was in the survey was, what do you consider to be the county's biggest challenge? The number one answer was lack of high-paying and high-tech jobs, as I referenced earlier. The number 2 answer was infrastructure improvements not keeping pace with developments. Infrastructure is a multitude of areas, but I can speak more to the school district, but of course, as I said, not on the school district's behalf. From my perspective, the Smyrna School District is barely keeping our head above water. When it comes to capacity, one of our schools, John Bassett Moore, is the 7th most overcrowded school in the state. We have acquired land and funding to build a new intermediate school, but even with that and our 2 other expansions we're in the middle of, we still have crowded schools. Couple that with the thousands of already approved permits that can be built, they can be pulled and built on today, that puts us in a terrible position. When rezoning happens or developments are approved, the school district does not get a say. We are just notified and then have to deal with the influx of students even if we do not have the capacity. I am confident that everyone feels our kids are of the utmost importance. I personally do not want to see them suffer for overcrowded schools because of what we do. I understand there are 2 inevitable things in life, change and death. I'm not saying we shouldn't embrace change. I think we all should, but we should all work together to be smart about it and make sure that we are enhancing our county and not at the detriment of our current residents. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate everything that you do for our county.
I certainly appreciate your presentation, Mr. Skuse. I'll now open it up to commissioners. Anybody have a question for this gentleman? Mr. Servon?
No, thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Last call on against this project. Last call. Give us your name and address. You'll be either sworn or affirmed.
My name's Ron Bowman. I live at 894 Twin Willows Road, Smyrna, Delaware.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I have one question. I'd like to know where the sign was posted about this zoning change.
There were 2 signs posted, I believe, one on Twin Willows, one on the highway. Somebody pulled them up after we posted them, but you can see them.
Yeah, they were up 24 hours and they got pulled. And also, can you put the, where the question, slide back up? So there's something I want to show you. See that tractor trailer there? That's where he parks. Do we know where the entrance is going to be to this development? Because right now, across the street from where that trailer is, there's Twin Willows development. I can't tell you the number of cars that pull out in front of me when I come down over the bridge. And I've even had a state trooper pull out in front of me and almost hit him.
Yes, sir. This is
because of
just
that
a
traffic.
zoning change.
Okay.
We're not to the construction phase or the design phase where they'll be back to us if something does happen.
But I am opposed to this because there's enough developments going up. I mean, they have to add another school already in Smyrna, which has been approved because of the development that's going to go up across from the rest area in Smyrna. It's just too much. We're growing way too fast, and these roads just can't handle it. Because they already said back in 2006 they were going to put a development up behind my house, and DelDOT stated right then and there that the road is not wide enough for the traffic that would encase.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for this individual? Mr. Servon?
No, thank you.
Thank you again. Last call. Anybody else would like to speak against this project? Okay, ma'am, give us your name and address. You can be either sworn or affirmed.
My name is Erica Gittau. My address is 65 East Wellington Mews, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I have lived at my residence for just over 9 years, and if it's a question of if the lot is vacant or not, the whole time that I have lived there, this family has been there. I drive by daily, multiple times a day sometimes, and see them there out in the tending to flowers and everything out there in the garden. And so that, I don't know if that's a question or would hold anything up or what, but they do reside there. I didn't know that they were going to be here presenting anything tonight. My purpose in coming was just to find out some information about what kind of residence you're looking to put up. Like, is it going to be apartments and high rises? Is it going to be another subdivision?
Ma'am, I can answer that. This is just a zoning meeting. All we're doing is changing the zoning from BG possibly down to RM. So there's nothing in the design phase at this time. We have no way to answer that question.
Okay, so if it goes to that, then that's still then it would be addressed later? What kind of
That's
residence
correct.
it would be?
If anything happens or we go through that, then there will be the planning stage, the plot drawing, and there will be another, like we're having tonight. There will be a meeting.
All right, that was all I needed to know. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for this lady?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing nobody else, I think Mr. Davis has something he'd like to say. Wait a minute, Mr. Davis. Is there somebody on the phone who'd like to speak? Mark?
Yes, we have a gentleman, Kenny. If you can unmute your line and give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Molesky. I reside at 55 Ashfield Court, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977 in the community of Twin Willows.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go right ahead, sir.
All right. Gentleman before had talked about these signs. I had wrote the county about these signs. I come out of Twin Willows, make a left on the Twin Willows Road, and then a right on 13 every single day. That morning, on September 11th, there was no sign. Let's say it's 7:30 a.m. when I left. I come home and I go back out to the grocery store. It's 5:30 at that point. I see a sign. I snap a picture. I said, this wasn't here earlier. I wrote a few neighbors and said, hey, we have to go to this meeting tonight. And 3 hours later at 8:04, the sign was removed. Now, I don't know about the one on the highway. I never saw it. I could just, been minding my own business. But that one, it's right at the stop signs at the intersection. You can't miss it. It was not up long enough for anyone to really prepare themselves for tonight. I spoke to the county. They said it was likely removed by the owner of the property and not the county. The owner was or is in the room, and it sounds like it's not something that they would have removed. It just feels deceptive. I'm not saying it was from KHAV. It could have been anybody, right? But it feels deceptive that both signs miraculously had been removed. Plenty of times public notice signs are not vandalized and removed. This is very unusual. I don't believe that an 82-acre high density residential community fits both the comprehensive plan and the residents in and around Twin Willows Road and the community there. Now, I've been a resident in Twin Willows. I built a home in 2010, built it from Ryan Homes. And to be honest, I've actually enjoyed the wilderness that's on that side of the property. There's already enough noise pollution in that area, us being situated between Route 13 and Route 1. There's already enough noise. Adding a high density residential homes to this area will make it feel like Brentford Road. If any of you are in the room or familiar with Brentford Road, that is a train wreck. It is one lane in and out. You can't even make a right at the light because there's not a turn lane. The amount of traffic that's on Brentford Road due to the population density and that intersection is not something we need just a mile down the road. Now, NKS Distribution had built a center, I think it opened last October, and a new light was put in. I think a new high density residential community would warrant an additional light on Route 13 with additional chances of accidents at intersections. There's already plenty of accidents. I don't have the data in front of me. I could probably get that for you. However, there are a lot of accidents that I've noticed in 14 years I've been at Twin Willows, on Twin Willows Road. Now I'm talking South Carter Road intersection with Stadium right there at the Rite Aid. I'm talking the Wawa intersection, Jimmy Drive, I think that's called, and also the Brentford Road intersection. There's been accidents. I don't want to say monthly because that's speculation. I don't have the actual data, but I can count on two hands how many accidents I've seen. I believe, now no traffic statistician or anything, adding an additional light is just going to cause more problems at another intersection. Now, that golf course that one of the commissioners had mentioned earlier that is public owned, I thought it was private owned. The state may own it. However, they have received new funds. I don't know from where, but they are going to expand and build upon the current golf course. Now they're going to put more money into it, which is going to bring more people, on that side of 13. So between that, the high density residential community, which we don't know anything about yet, I just don't believe it fits the whole plan here in Smyrna. There's not enough businesses anyway. There's already a driver shortage on school buses. And you can read about that stuff in all of the local Smyrna Facebook groups. There's enough parents that complain about that their kids will have to walk to school now. I think a high density residential community is just going to add to those problems that already exist. Let's see.
Is that end of your statement, sir?
I wanted to make sure I caught everything. I have the notes here. The employment opportunities. I believe moving it from a general business zoning to residential hinders the opportunity for businesses to come into the town and offer the community a place of employment. Many folks in Smyrna, such as myself, we commute. We commute outside of the town. Myself, I commute to Wilmington every single day. My wife commutes to Wilmington. If there were different type of businesses that can host maybe more of the professional style employment, would maybe better be suited on that parcel if the owner decides to sell at some point. But generally speaking, I believe that changing that from general business to high density residential would not match the comprehensive plan of the community, the town. And that ends my statement. I appreciate you all listening and taking my notes into consideration.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask the commissioners, anybody have any questions of this individual? If not, once again, thank you for your comments. And Mark, I think somebody else has raised their hand.
Yes, if Joni or Matt Patterson, if you can unmute your line and give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Yeah, it's Matthew Patterson, 70 Ashfield Court in Smyrna, 19977.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having this and getting it online so we can still do our regular lives but still participate in these kinds of like super important meetings and interface with the government from the public side. I'm probably going to end up echoing a lot of the concerns that I think some of the other folks have already said. First and foremost being just the overcrowding concern with rezoning such a very large plot of lands to high density multi-residential or whatever it is. You're going to end up seeing us slowly turn into Middletown, where you can't get from the east side to the west side of the town through at the middle of the day. You have more people than you have businesses, you have overcrowded schools, and you have all of the issues that come with just general overcrowding. I sure maybe that's the direction some folks want Smyrna to go, but the folks who live here, we moved to Smyrna because we like the space. We like to be away from that overcrowding, that high density type of living areas. So to add another one of those style developments is just way outside of what everyone who moved to that town wanted when they moved to the town or now in the area of Smyrna. You also have the school situation with it. You have a complete lack of daycares all throughout the entire area down here. People will sit on waiting lists from the time that they find out they're pregnant until their children are 1, 2, or even 3 years old before they can get a daycare slot just to help facilitate them being able to work. And even then, there's no guarantee that the daycare their kids go to feeds the school that their child's going to have to go to. So you add these high residential areas, you add just an entire add new crop of children to this already overburdened daycare list, let alone the schools associated with it. The schools don't have enough teachers to keep everyone going. They don't have enough aides for any special education needs to help any of the students who are struggling. They don't have enough resources as it is to take care of and do the job that they need to do. And adding high residential living just compounds that problem exponentially at the cost of the people who already live here. So you push the problem further down the drain. It will never crawl out of that. And then people will end up having to leave and move south or west of Smyrna, and the problem will just kind of continue to follow them. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is that the entire area where this is being rezoned, where everyone's looking at changing this, it's all single family homes in the immediate area. If you were to add you essentially apartments, you add rentals to that area, there's a lot of crime that comes with it. There's a lot of things that come with that type of living scenario that is not necessarily something that the people who moved to Smyrna, to the area that we live in, wanted. And heck, there's even some people that moved out of high crime rate areas or high police contact rate areas that were multi-residential, that were apartment buildings, that were high density living scenarios. They moved away from them so they could start and raise or improve their families because they didn't want to live in those kinds of places. So to bring that to our town is way outside of the desire of anyone that even lives around here. That's the end of my statement. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any commissioners have any questions? I see none. Mr. Servon?
No, thank you.
I don't see any questions, and thank you for your comments. Is there any other hands raised, Mark?
Yes, Jamie Magaha, if you can unmute your line, state your name and address, and be sworn or affirmed.
Hi, yes, my name is Jamie McGaha, and I'm a resident. I live at 606 Twin Willows Road in Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time this evening to listen to the residents of both Smyrna and Twin Willows Road and Twin Willows development. I will also be echoing the information that has been shared between all the residents that have spoken before me. I am against the high density rezoning. This is just echoing everything that has been already discussed.
from the lack of employment opportunities that will be non-existent in the area. And I also want to speak to the wildlife in the area that is in question. Right now, there is a nursery that was once on the property. And at this time, there are many endangered species, including eagles, different kinds of hawks, woodpeckers. There are many deer that live in that area at this time that are essentially keeping Route 1 safe. If a housing development were to be put in this area, that will push all the wildlife back onto Route 1 or onto our roads, our back roads, things of that. So I don't know if there is cause for concern or conservation type of things that will be available to the wildlife that's currently on the property, but that is certainly something to take into consideration. Also want to speak about the increase in crime that this housing development or this rezoning would bring, as opposed to what it's currently serving as. And then the biggest thing I think we're all speaking about is the overcrowding of our schools and the lack of school buses. I have also I've choiced my son into Clayton Intermediate because of the overcrowding at JBM, and even though it's in the same school district, I have to drive my child to school. That is because although it's in the same district, there's a lack of school buses. There's also a lack of school buses that are for high schools. My daughter goes to Polytech, and she was asked to, so I'm on the other side of the Route 1 overpass. She was asked to walk all the way from over top of the overpass into Twin Willows neighborhood to catch her bus for Polytech because there are no drivers available to go up the road, turn around, come back. And then lastly, I wanted to speak upon the buffer of noise from Route 1 that the wildlife, the area that it's serving as now, as the previous farm, is offering to the residents in the area. If this were to be a high-density housing area, this would no longer buffer Route 1 and 13 traffic. This would only increase the noise in our area. So I would like to have that all taken into consideration. We had just moved to this area to get away from the city feel last January. So I'm a new resident, and you know the lack of information that I have, and this coming with no postings or anything that I've seen. I only learn of this meeting from Facebook, and I also spread the word to other residents. It's just concerning, and I just hope that this is taken into consideration. And that's all.
I thank you very much, and I would like to point out that this is actually advertised in the newspaper also, not only the signage on the roadway and how it's done, but we appreciate your comments. I assume no commissioners have any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else has their hand raised? Mark?
I see no more hands raised online at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am, you've already had your time at the mic and you already been there, so I'm sorry about that. So, what we're going to do is...
She's
oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
She spoke on a previous application.
You got to remember, I'm pretty mature up here, so I forget too, so...
It's all right, sir. I've never been to anything like this, so I don't know how it goes.
So she's already been sworn in, so you can go ahead and make your comments.
I have a couple things. First of all, I also want to make it known that I have seen Miss Aurora and her mama on the property at their home, and they're quite lovely. I also want to just say for it's a beautiful area, and I would just like to say that just because you can do something, high residential, doesn't necessarily mean you should. And not all progress is great. So I would just consider the strain on the water resources, all the clearing of that amazing, beautiful area that's there, and the high volume of traffic, and there's just so much that I think needs to be considered. And thank you so much.
Well, I would like to get your name again, because when this
Sure.
record is drafted, we need to know who you are.
Oh, yes, sir. My name is Sarah Turner.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
yes, sir.
your
Thank
comments.
you.
Anyone else here have any questions? Seeing none, I guess we can now move. If Mr. Davis has a motion, we can go ahead with that. Is that
Go
correct?
ahead. Mhm.
Mr. Davis, I'll recognize you for what you want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've served on this planning commission for a long time, and I've never seen such a complicated mess as I've heard tonight. But I believe in fairness. I actually don't know myself who's right and who's wrong. And I would be very uncomfortable next week to vote not knowing the answers. I think in fairness to the applicant and to the lady over here to the right, I think I'm going to make a motion that it be postponed for 30 days. These two groups need to sit down and discuss the issues. And I'm looking after this lady over here. There's a lot of issues she said. She may be right. She may have misunderstood. I don't know. But this needs to be resolved, and we need to be fair about it. She's brought it on the table. If she hadn't came tonight, there'd probably been no questions. My motion is to table it for 30 days. I don't think the county should have to pay the expense to do all the research, to be honest with you. So I say it's work. But this is one of those things, in my opinion, could end up at the Court of Chancery with a petition to partition. And I don't know that, but it could happen. So they need to work it out. My motion is table it for 30 days, and that we are given satisfactory information, legal information, who the owners of the entire property is, including this lady over here. That's my motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman,
Yes, to second.
Mr. Servon,
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher.
I want to say no, but I'm going to say yes on the condition that I'm on the record as saying in 1 month, we will vote on this. I don't want to put anything any longer, and personally, I don't think it's going to be dealt with in 1 month. But I would like, yes, so I'll vote for the 30 days only.
Mr. Galvary,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills,
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Davis,
Yes, per motion, and I hope it all works out. Thank you.
Mr. Jester.
Yes, per the motion, and I certainly hope you all get together and work this out.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of continuing ordinance LC 2426 for a period of 30 days.
So this will not be dealt with next week. For all your information here, it'll be dealt with in 30 days. Thank you all for your comments. Next one and final one we have for tonight is ordinance number, application and name is LC 24-28, CZ-24-10, Magnolia Volunteer Fire Company, Inc. Applicant and owner is Magnolia Volunteer Fire Company, Inc., P.O. Box 55, Magnolia, Delaware, 19962. Additional contact is Walt Slazak, 133 Whitehall Lane, Magnolia, Delaware, 19962. Present zoning is AC. Proposed zoning is BG. Relation to gross zone is inside. Levy Court District, Mr. Hertz. 4th School District, Cesar Rodney. Fire District, Magnolia. Area and location, it's Station 55. I forgot to mention that. I always do that for myself and all. Area and location is 2.6 plus or minus acres located on the west side of Chatham Road. Is there someone here to represent? Please come up and give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Yes, my name is Walt Slezak, and I live at 133 Whitetail Lane in Magnolia, Delaware, 19962.
So do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So we are trying to rezone the property for the intent and purpose. The fire company doesn't get the funding it needs nowadays to run EMS like it should. We cannot support the EMS on the grant money and the financial aid that we receive to employ full-time staff for the fire company to provide a service to the community that they need the way Magnolia is growing. They are building houses, I think in the county is probably one of the biggest areas, okay? So in that fact, we want to take the property that we have 2.6 acres and we would like to put RV and fire company storage on the property. So we are looking to rezone it to BG so that we can get an income and we can also store some of our own vehicles on that property. We actually really need the money because an ambulance nowadays, everybody knows, is like $350,000. It's a lot of money. And we just don't have the money to support the growth in the town or the area that we live in on our fire district. So we are trying to do something to raise additional funds so we can hire full-time staff and provide a better service to our community. This is really needed bad. And that's why we are come to the county to try to rezone the piece of property. So I don't know much more to say to you guys, but as a fire service, I'm a member and I see what we do in the fire service and I see where we are financially. And the way they're building houses, you know, and all the HOAs, these people are gonna need places to put their campers or their boats. And we're not looking to build an eyesore, absolutely not. We wanna build something that's really nice and that'll be beneficial to the community and it'll also help the fire service in our area to help fund the ambulance service. We cannot keep going the way we're going. We're in a deficit every year taking money from the funds that we are trying to have in an operating expense to try to pay the paid staff. And people don't realize that it's just not there. The money's not there. We don't have a fire tax in the county or the state to cover the expenses of employees. So we actually really need the funds to do this, to provide an excellent service to our community, you know.
I appreciate it, and I know where you're coming from, being I'm from 48 there next to you. I understand it very well. I think Denise wants to say something.
Okay, so in other words, you're not adding to the fire company itself. You are proposing a business.
Yes, kind of like a business. Yes, absolutely. But we also need the space also because we have equipment that we need to put in a secure area. So we would like to be able to put our, you know, we got an antique and we want to put a trailer there for our antique to store it in, and we need to probably do something in that effect.
So, I mean, if it was just for that, we wouldn't have to rezone, would we? Because the fire company doesn't need to be rezoned in order to have some, am I correct about that?
If it had to do solely with the fire company, that would be considered an institutional use.
Right, so that wouldn't need to be rezoned.
What's being
But this
proposed is a
business.
commercial use, yes.
Now, the property next to us has just been rezoned to neighborhood business, and we have a little neighborhood business, and we're not looking to build a Walmart on the property. We're looking to be able to put some RVs in storage there to, like I said, support the fire company.
I understand what you're saying, but you've got to realize that when we rezone something, in B, it'll be BN?
The proposal is BG.
BG, there's a whole list of things that could go in there. I know what you're saying. I
Yep.
believe what you're saying.
So,
But there's so many things that could go in there instead
So,
of, in the future, whatever.
I want to ask a question. When I went to the county to have it rezoned, I asked Jamie down there, which is one of your employees, what would fit us best? And I said, can we do what we want in neighborhood business? And she went and talked to her supervisor and came back and said, I think you need to do it in BG. So we don't really have a super good definition of what neighborhood business would be, otherwise we would zone it neighborhood business. Now, if we have to put stipulations on the rezoning of it that it will only be used for a parking lot like this, we would do that, we would accept that and be happy with that, because we're telling you what we're going to do and what we need to use it for. We're not going to have it rezoned BG and then we're going to sell it to a business to put a pizza shop or something there. We are definitely not doing that. We actually need the money to fund the firehouse.
Sarah, there can't be any stipulations on a rezoning, can there?
I wouldn't recommend it.
But it could be done. I mean, I'm sure in the past, down the road, it's been done. I'm sure the commissioners or whoever would make the final decision could put a stipulation on it if need be. So.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Davis has something he wants to say.
Well, I'm a neighbor. I don't live in Frederick anymore, but I live in Woodside. But I'm a 63-year member and past chief Station 49. I just wanted to tell you that everything you said is absolutely 100% correct about funding and things like that. But I think your motivation to put probably a small mini storage or RV, you're on the right track. I do that business. I own Woodside Mini Storage and I own the RV business out on the highway and over to mini storage. I'll bet you I get 20 calls a week for people that want a spot to store their RV in a fenced area. There's some things you have to do, like security and things like this. But I'm gonna tell you something. There's only 2 people in Kenton County currently does it. Tony Liberto on Route 10. I was the first one that ever did it. And within 30 days, my lot was filled up. I had to put all the fence, come before the county, and had to do all those things. It's a very profitable business. Not only is it a good money business, there's a big demand for it. And when I look at your district, I know we come up and we assist Station 55 on fires, so I'm pretty familiar with it. Development's big down there. And I can guarantee you they don't have a place to put their mini storage stuff, or they don't have a place down there to put the RVs. If you get this done, you'll be very successful. I just put that on the record just for you guys. Thank you. And I'm going to support this thing 100%.
Well, and I want to make a comment. We are not putting a mini storage in. I'm just telling you that right now. We are going to gravel it, fence it, and put campers and boats and trailers on it. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to go that.
I'll tell you the difference. I'm going to tell you the difference. Shut up. When you rent to RV people, the average RV costs $50,000. I got over $1 million worth of RVs in my space, okay? People who spend that kind of money are not people you don't want to deal with. My mini storage, I'm very selective who I rent. I've had it 28 years, only moved 4 people, because I screen every one of them very, very carefully. And you can run into problems, you're right. But the RV business is a hot ticket in this county right now. Just look around, see who does them, who's got them. There's only 2 of us. Thank you.
Well, what's funny is that I live in a development that has an HOA, and I'm not allowed to have an RV there. And the way things are building, like out by Troop 3, they're putting a bunch of houses in, and down by Barker's Landing, and they're just growing leaps and bounds. And from what I understand, that Magnolia is probably one of the biggest development areas right now that's going on in the county. And we're only trying to help. We're helping in two directions, really. You're helping the fire service provide a better service to our community, and you're also helping the members that are moving into these houses. I mean, there's things we can do to that property that wouldn't be as nice as putting RVs on it, you know? I mean, we could rent it to a farmer and he could grow livestock on it, you know, because
Well, I tell you
it is
this,
AG, you know?
If you put the RV business there, I'll send you a lot of business because I don't got so much space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Govry?
Actually, staff. So, Sarah, if I'm correct, what we're being asked really is a zoning change. We're not really making a decision on the use. We're just being told what the use is.
Correct.
Okay, so if we were to make this zoning change, I'm looking at the Kent County Conservation District comments, but what I don't see here, because it's not necessary because we're not voting on what's going to go on the space, so there's really nothing from DENREC. So there's no environmental impact study at this juncture because we're only voting on a change of zoning.
Correct.
But anybody who were to use this property, regardless of whether it's this applicant or somebody in the future, would require that environmental impact analysis to make sure that that particular property is suitable for what would be able to go into it or not. Am I wrong on that?
Well, they would certainly have to respect any of the county's land development regulations as they relate to wetlands, woodlands, water quality, et cetera.
So they will be in front of us again once they propose.
Not necessarily. It depends on what's proposed. Some things are by right, and they're reviewed by the staff. They don't always come back to the planning commission.
Okay. All right, that was a clarification, thank you. My only comment then to the applicant is just that being a businessman most of my life, every time you try to do something to make a few extra bucks, which actually ends up being another business, you are in business for those few extra bucks. So, I'm sure you guys have analyzed that and realized that while you're trying to bring in extra money from having this, you're actually going to be spending money running a business at the same time. So I hope for you that it all works out, but that's my only comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Govry. I do have a question. Sir, the back part of this lot is actually part of that development, has a cul-de-sac to it?
Yes.
So that's in the development of those houses when they build it?
Yes.
I like your answers. You're my kind of person. Is that all you had to say, sir?
Yes. So
that's all I need to hear.
So one of the things we were thinking of is I know the county's going to make requirements on what we need to do to buffer it on that residential area back there. So we're not worried about that, and we're going to do what's right. You know, we want to keep a spitting image of the fire service. You know, we're not going to blacken anybody's eye. You know, we're trying to do the right thing. You know?
Very good, because I know, like you said, Irish Hill Road, clear from Canterbury into Magnolia, is nothing but housing developments. So.
Now, I'd also like to say that we went to the State Planning Commission, and they approved. They had no objections on what we wanted to do, and they also approved us a small commercial entrance on the piece of property already. So we are heading in the right direction. So we just need to rezone it.
Okay, any other commissioners? Mr. Servon, you have a question?
Not at this time, thanks.
Thank you for your presentation, and
Thank
we
you.
certainly appreciate it. Anyone else here like to speak in favor of this project?
Are you in favor?
Yeah.
You can just pull the mic down to you and give us your name and address.
Hello, my name's Shirley Zeck. I live at 1557 Clapham Road, Magnolia, 19962. I am right next door to them.
Ma'am, may I?
Oh,
do
yeah.
you? No, that's quite. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I have to make a comment. This past week, something bad happened to me. I had to call an ambulance for myself. And the Magnolia Company has two, but they were out at that time. I had to wait till Frederick could come up. And if it was more serious condition, I might have died. So we need another ambulance and the space for it next door to me. And I also want to say with all the houses going to be built in this area, we do need it.
We thank you then, appreciate it.
And they should get, they need the money. That's all there is to it.
Any commissioner have any questions?
Thank you.
Of the young lady? Thank you very much. Anybody else here like to speak in favor of it?
Ryan Clark, 9 North Main Street, Magnolia.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So just for transparency, I am the Magnolia Fire Company president, but I'm also a town resident. In favor on it from both fronts. So just as a town resident, the town is changing, the area is changing. So I live half mile north of there on State Street where it converts over. The reality is what this close-up map doesn't show is just across the street, about an 1/8 mile north, there's already a commercial building there. And with the development, as you mentioned, getting built behind it, it really landlocks this parcel now where using it for agriculture becomes next to impossible because it just gets so small at that point. So with support trying to change it to a useful purpose for the community that also supports emergency services for the community. The reality is we're expecting over 1,000 homes over just the next couple of years. The community is growing, and that is expensive to provide emergency services for. We want to be able to grow and serve the community the best we can, and this helps us do that. Understanding that a lot of your comments are right. It's another business for us. It's some work, but we understand that. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for this individual? Well, you'll have a solar farm on one side of Magnolia. Now you're going to look at something development on the south side.
And this is allowing us to avoid a solar farm on our larger parcel. So we do have 30 acres of farm and woodland that we would like to maintain that way.
Yes.
As long as we can, because that is what the community is about.
Very good. Very good. Mr. Servon, you got any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody on the phone at all, Mark, raised their hand or anything? Seeing no more for side, I'll go against, and I don't see anybody in the crowd except the gentleman over here to my right. Anybody against? Third and final call. Anybody against on the phone or any place?
We have no more members from the general public online at this time, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, we'll take up this project next week. Once again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Down to public comment. I only see one public out there, so I don't know if he has any comment or not. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Commission comments? I do have one comment, sir, or one question. I've noticed all these solar farms that we have approved, and not many of them have been built yet, but they have large grass and weeds and everything that's growing on them. Aren't they required to maintain them at a cut level or not? Yep. I've had calls on it, for the only reason I'm asking you.
If someone wanted to file a complaint, I would send a code enforcement officer out.
Okay, because I know there is 2 or 3 in the Harrington area that people have called me about.
Welcome
wanting
to
know that
send me the complaint, and I will send someone out.
you are commission comment, Denise.
Well, no, I do. I would say only 25% of the time do I understand the person's name. Because we have a tendency, and all of we humans, it's our name, so we say it really fast and not necessarily clearly. If we could just ask them to clearly state their name, and I know it would help you, but you didn't know what their names were.
Any other commissioner comment? Mr. Servon, any commissioner comment?
No, thank you.
Seeing none, any other business before the, once again, thank the attorney. Thank you for dragging us out for 2.5 hours. I appreciate that.
Initiated. You got initiated.
So I now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to adjourn.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes, to adjourn.
Mr. Galvery?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir, adjourn.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to adjourn, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.